Joining me now is the Democratic governor of North Carolina, Roy Cooper. Governor, good to see you. And it's one of those rare occasions where you and I get to talk and it's not a hurricane or some disaster. So I appreciate your time this morning. Governor, let's talk about this because, in fact, there is a case before the Supreme Court, Moore v. Harper, that is directly related to North Carolina and legislatures and their rights and the fact that in many southern legislatures there is this move toward supremacy of the legislature and no accountability to any court. So you really are. When I said North Carolina is at the front line of some of these issues, you really are.
We are, Allie. We're also the fullback of presidential politics. Republicans have to win North Carolina in order to be president. Democrats don't. But we often have the very closest presidential race, and we know how important it is to make sure that Republicans keep having to pour their resources and time into North Carolina in a presidential race. But you also have these Republican legislatures across the country that are seizing power and that are taking advantage of the overturning of Roe v. Wade in order to restrict women's reproductive freedom and to restrict voting rights. Our Republican legislature in North Carolina actually went to the United States Supreme Court and argued the independent legislature theory, saying that they should have complete control on how federal elections are run in North Carolina, and that even a gubernatorial veto or a state Supreme Court ruling otherwise would not even count, that they are the ones who control. We see ultra-extreme gerrymandering from this court. Our state Supreme Court a couple of years ago ruled that their extreme partisan gerrymandering was unconstitutional. And guess what? When the districts were fair in North Carolina, we now have 7 Democrats and 7 Republicans in Washington representing North Carolina in Congress. But now our state Supreme Court has ruled that the legislature can draw in an extreme partisan gerrymandering way. And I would expect that you would see potentially a 10-4. They may even attempt to draw an 11-3, even in a state that's 50-50. That's why it's so important that we also pay attention not only to the national races, but to governor's races and state legislative races across the country, because we have a lot of brave legislators and Democratic governors who are fighting battles for freedom, for women's freedom, for the freedom to vote, making sure that we are standing in the breach here.
One thing I want you to help us understand. Yesterday, I had a conversation with a Republican state senator from South Carolina, one of 5 women in the state Senate who banded together to, for the 3rd time in a year, overcome abortion restrictions or absolute abortion restrictions in that state. You look at the Tennessee House, where they threw the 2 Justins out. That is a state where there's a Republican supermajority, and yet some of those Republicans actually run unopposed. They don't have a Democratic opponent because there's no chance they're going to lose in their districts. Let's go back to North Carolina for a second. You won your last election by more than 250,000 votes over your Republican opponent. And as you said, the delegation is 7 Republicans and 7 Democrats. Why is it in these states? You are an example of how gerrymandering has affected the fact that there are states that have Democratic governors but Republican majorities in their state legislatures, even though they're the same voters.
Yeah, we need to have independent redistricting commissions to draw lines. You can see, particularly now with technology, they can be technologically diabolical in the way they draw these districts down to the household. And we've seen it in North Carolina, where Republicans have said that they are actually attempting to draw these districts so more Republicans can be elected. But I think it's really important to note, though, that across the country, that there is hope. Democratic legislators are fighting. You mentioned South Carolina. I was there Friday night at the Clyburn Fish Fry and at the Democratic Party convention there. Their hopes were sky high because they had brave Democratic legislators who were able to find Republican legislators to help prevent this extreme abortion ban that they were trying to push through the legislature. And Allie, you and I both know that the people of this country do not support extreme abortion bans by large margins. And I think enough Republicans are recognizing what a liability. Not only is it going to kill women, not only is it going to hurt women's health care, which is the most important thing, but politically, it's going to hurt Republicans in 2024. We saw this issue in our governor's races across the country. We had historic wins at a time when normally when the first president's midterm comes, it's an apocalypse for that party. This time we finished +2 Republican governors. We now represent 57% of the population, Democratic governors do. And we are standing for freedom, fighting for democracy, protecting women's reproductive health. These issues help drive people to the polls in 2022. I believe they will be there in 2024.
It also, in a low unemployment world, may drive people to your states, right? I mean, this is what I've heard from Governor Inslee in Oregon, Governor Whitmer in Michigan, Governor Healy in Massachusetts, that old saw that Republican states used to use to lure businesses and people from Democratic states is now reversed. It's the come to our states and we will protect your freedoms.
It's unfortunate that we have to be that way in this country. And make no mistake, many of the Republicans have said that this should be decided at the state level. You only have to look at this ridiculous lawsuit on mifepristone to understand that they are still working to ban abortion nationally. You only have to look at what this Republican Congress under Kevin McCarthy and his right wing is doing on abortion to understand that if Republicans got control of the national apparatus, you would see a national abortion ban. So let's don't be fooled by that. We still have to fight these battles at the state level, but we have to win in 2024. And Joe Biden can do it. There's no question. He's done more in 2 years than most presidents can hope to do in 8. My first 4 years as governor was with Donald Trump, and it was infrastructure week every other week. Never happened. When Joe Biden was elected, we got it. We know what a difference he's made in this country, and we have to win in 2024.
As a business and economics reporter, Stephanie Ruhle and I were always very excited on the Monday of those infrastructure weeks that something was going to get done in America. And I think by Monday afternoon, it was over because Donald Trump had gone in some different direction. I, by the way, didn't mean to break any news here this morning. Governor Inslee is still, in fact, the governor of Washington State. He has not moved over to Oregon. Governor, good to see you, as always. Thank you for joining us this morning. I think there's a lot more that you and I need to talk about, so I'm going to right now invite you back so that we can continue this conversation. Thanks for being with us.